Hello, everyone. I'm Rodney from Nebraska Furniture Mart, and I thought we would show you today how I incorporate all of those amazing pots that we have at NFM. Um, I'll show you how to do some planting tricks, how to use them the best way possible, and give you some pointers on the stuff that I really love about all of these pots that we carry. Now, these are two smaller pots. We also have massive size pots with everything that you could possibly want. But I'm going to use these as our demo so that they are smaller for me to handle and we can get this done. So first, when you buy the pot, look for where your space is. Now, I'll tell you, everything in the store looks bigger than what it looks like at home. So when you're in the store and you see this, it's probably a 24 or 28-inch pot. It looks massive. But when you get it home in your big yard, or even if you're just using a deck or a balcony, they look much smaller. So buy bigger than what you think you need. The next thing to do is virtually all of the pots we carry at NFM are frost proof. So that means these big heavy pots can stay out all year. Now there's a few that are a little thinner that are more decorative. Those do need to be brought in, but these big heavy ones, as you can see throughout my yard, they're everywhere. Those just stay right out there all winter long and life is good. And then in the spring, you come and clean them up and replant them. Okay, so let's look at a new pot. I just bought these, and the assortment is always varied down at NFM, so there's not, you might not find these exact ones. But the first thing you want to do is build a base. And what the base does is allows the water and moisture that you're watering or when it rains to go through the bottom. And you can see we keep all of our pots have a drain hole at the bottom, and that's important because it's really hard to drain a pot that is filled up with a bunch of leaves and dirt and all of that, kind of like this one did. So we'll take that out, and you can see the hole there. So to do that, to make proper drainage, you have a couple options. You can use a broken pot, which I break a lot of them because I drop them, or the dog bounces into them. So these make a great base. So that will allow some drainage of the water. It'll go through that hole. Life is good. But then the next thing you want to do is you want to build up. So you don't want to fill this whole thing with 4 bags of potting soil. First of all, it's going to be super heavy, and potting soil ain't cheap. So what you need to do is add filler. And you can use, I have some styrofoam that I like to use. You just break it apart, start throwing it in the bottom. Nothing like being a weakling. So the styrofoam's fun, but then you can also, if you don't have a bunch of styrofoam, everybody has these plastic bottles. You're either drinking soda out of them, or you're doing, this is a dog treat plastic. So what you're trying to do is fill up the pot without having to fill it with dirt. And what that does is it allows this pot to remain movable. And it's also a great cost-effective way to keep the cost of all the potting soil and the plants and all of that kind of in check. So now we have our base. We have our filler. Now I do 2 different things. So I have a spot where I mix my own dirt, but most people don't have that. So you can buy potting soil, which is, you want to buy potting soil. Don't buy topsoil. Don't buy any of the $2 a bag dirt from the different big box stores, because that doesn't have the organic material in it that lets it drain. So, but I do, well, let's see, we might have a question. What do you recommend to keep plants standing up? So you can do a couple different things. I use twigs from the yard because I like an organic look, but you can also, you can get a little tower. These are very inexpensive. You can use a wood dowel. You can do whatever you really need to. But the other thing to do, when you buy bedding plants, and we have a bunch, I'm going to show you how to use them, plant them deep. And most people think that you want to plant them at the very top of the soil. You actually want to plant them a little bit under the soil. So that stabilizes them, and then it also allows them to grow a little sturdier. Okay, so let's do our dirt part. Now, this is inexpensive potting soil, and we're going to use that as our base because you don't need the really good stuff at the top. And because of time, I'm just going to dump it. So you get your potting soil, your inexpensive potting soil as your base. Kind of tap it down a little bit, fill in those crevices. As you water, it's going to also break down into those crevices and fill those spots. It rained in Omaha last night, so everything's a little wet. And then take your fancier potting soil that's, 3 times the price and fill the top. The flowers don't really care too much about the dirt at the underneath this, but this kind of topsoil or potting mix is really good at holding moisture, and it's built in with some fertilizer, so it's super kind of handy. So then, now we have our pot. We're ready to start doing something. Because I have over 50 of these pots in my yard, I do a mix. I do bedding plants that you can buy at the big box stores, or a lot of the grocery stores have them. Or I use seeds from the year before. So zinnias are one of my favorite flowers. And every year I harvest the dried out flowers, and these are all seeds. So all you have to do is just save them, crumple them, and you can see all the seeds that are in there. This is enough to do 2 or 3 pots actually. But I do save them by color because I like to do solid color sometimes. So we'll plant these in another pot. So you have your base, you have your filler, you have your base dirt, and then you put a nicer potting soil on the very top of it, and this is going to drain really well. So when you put it in a patio or a yard, it's going to let the water flow through it, keep the plants alive. A waterlogged pot is completely terrible for plants. Your plants will die unless you're growing a water lily in a pot. It just can't soak in water all day. So now let's talk about building your display. Now, if you're going to use the seeds, you literally just throw them in there and they start growing. We just had another. Let's see what the next question was. Nope, we didn't have another question. So let's start talking about the build. So 2 things I like to do. First, I want something tall in the center. So in the center, I'm going to plant something that's going to be taller just organically. So snapdragons are a great option. And don't be hooked on color. One of the things that I love to do is mix colors that shouldn't go together. So like this yellow, I'll put a red or a purple. I always tear the root bottom off because I think it helps the plants get ready to grow. And then you're going to plant this middle one, which is going to be tall. Those go about 12 to 18 inches, so it'll go a little taller. And then you just kind of build the dirt around it. Life is good, easy peasy. Don't mind my dog, who has to be involved in every single solitary thing. Now this one, see, isn't that a nice contrast? I think that's a purplish. I have a little color blindness, but that's going to be a nice contrast with that kind of butter yellow. So we're going to plant some of these around. Now, one thing I do suggest, don't overplant. So, when you buy those pre-made baskets that are at the lawn and garden stores and all of that, they really pack in the plants because they're selling you that sizzle. But at home, these plants are all going to grow. So you don't have to overfill the pot. You can really just put in a few things and then it will fill in the rest itself. So we're going to put these in. These are going to be our base. And if you know petunias, these things just absolutely love to grow in Nebraska. They like a warm, sunny spot. So we'll put that in. And then the other thing, so now you have height, you have your base, and if I had another petunia, which I do on the front, but I didn't bring it back, I would put another petunia here, and then this will completely fill in. But the other thing that I love to do is to put a vine. Now, a Rodney trick, you can buy these, which I personally think they're a little expensive. These are like $4. Or you can go a couple months before you're planning on planting, go to the supermarket. These are sweet potato vines. These colors come from the sweet potato. So you can actually just buy a sweet potato, wrap it in some paper towels, put it someplace dark, and it will start to bud. And when it buds, you can just throw it in the dirt. All of these pots are currently being done with a seed, the seed from a sweet potato. Now, I actually like to go to the Asian market because they have like purple and red, so the leaves are all really vibrant. But you know, you can just use a sweet potato from the grocery store and let it get with the little eyes, and then you just cut them off and plant them. It saves $4. You can get a whole bunch of them out of a 50-cent potato. Now this we're going to plant right here. Now we're going to come back because we've moved some dirt around, so we need to fill in around the sides. And I like to make sure it's kind of level all around, because when you water, if you don't, then a lot of the plants, a lot of the water will kind of drain to one side or another. So we have that, we have the sweet potato. You're gonna see over summer, this is going to drape down. You're gonna have all of these pretty petunias and this big bright yellow snapdragon in the middle, and it's just gonna be beautiful. I think that's us. Let's see what the question was. Does NFM carry pots that are heavy? Yes, actually, most of the pots that we carry are so heavy, I have to use my two-wheeler to move them. So, yes, they do not. Zinnias grow from seeds. Oh, it's not too late. In fact, most people, so the question is, how long does it take for zinnias to grow from seed? You're not too late. In fact, most people don't plant until Mother's Day. But this year I felt safe because of some of the weather patterns that I wasn't going to get another frost this year. So I've been planting early, but Mother's Day is really your target in Nebraska. And they take a couple weeks. I don't know, Scott, do you want to come over here for? So these are zinnias that are coming up here, and I planted them a week ago. So they grow pretty darn fast, and you can just fill this whole pot with leftover seeds from the year before, and it really is so helpful, and it's cheap. So yeah, this is, let's see, 1, 2, 3. This is like $7 worth of plants, $8 worth of plants. The seeds are free because I bought them last year and I just recovered the seeds. So if you have a bunch of them like I do, I use seeds primarily just because, you know, with 50 of them, I'm going to have a few $100s in plants if I buy them all from the market. So this one we're going to consider done. Something that's kind of fun, and I brought this just to kind of show. Whoop, we have a canopy in case it rains. So because I have so many pots, I like to bring some elevation to them. So I'll put a little pergola type thing. Now this sweet potato vine may grow up this, so it'll be kind of a dynamic looking display. But you can also plant vines, morning glories, moonflowers, all of those, and they grow like weeds in Nebraska. In fact, I have an issue with the morning glories right now because they keep reseeding themselves, and I don't want them there anymore, but they're going to come anyway. So you'll find a lot of plants in Nebraska that just reseed themselves, and that's pretty helpful. But I like a little dramatic tower in the middle. I think it's kind of fun. You could do tree branches in the middle and let a vine grow up, but there's lots of different things. So the pots are beautiful, but when you add the flowers and a little height, then they're just stunning. And again, these can be left out all year. So in the fall, when everything dies, you just let it go. And then in the spring, you pull the dirt up a little bit, fluff it up. I usually add a little bit of new potting soil to them and then replant or reseed, and you're good to go for the season. So we're going to say this one's done. Now we're going to work on this little guy because not everybody has room for 50 of these big pots. Same exact thing. You're going to find a base material, which can be any number of things. We're going to use this dog treat to put in our base. That's a little, oh, there we go. And remember, the plants are going to grow around all of that. So as long as they have dirt, life is good. Oh, we got another question. Are all the pots and planters in store online? Unfortunately, they're not. And not unfortunately, it's because each one's unique. They're not, they're all virtually hand painted. So each time they fire it, it's going to look different. So the thing about online, you have to have a very consistent product, which we do have some that are made out of like a polymer and plastic. Those are 100% consistent. They look the same all the time because they're manufactured that way. But these are actually kiln fired, and the glazes with the glass particles and the iron particles, those change every time you fire. So online, no, unfortunately, but actually it's fortunate because each one of these is like a piece of art. What is too much water for plants? So in Nebraska, because of the humidity, you don't want to soak them every week. You want to keep them moist, but soaking in water is really bad. So if it rains, I probably won't water for 3 or 4 days. And I keep all of these pots watered. So, but during the heat of summer, they need moisture. Even the zinnias, which are almost a desert plant, they need water. So just water them every other day or so. Zinnias especially, and moonflowers, and what else? There's several plants that will tell you when they want watered because their little leaves get a little droopy, and then you're like, oh, better get out there. So a lot of them will tell you, especially if you use seeds and you overseed it and it's just like this huge bouquet of flowers. Those suck up a lot of water. So, you'll get a hang of it. You'll see when it's time. And when they're happy, they make blooms. So if they're overwatered or underwater, they don't bloom. So that's what you want to do. Okay, so this is a little pot. This is something for a deck or a smaller space. We're still going to do that same thing with filling the bottom part with this inexpensive potting soil. And we'll spread that out a little bit. And then we're going to put the good stuff on top of that. But this time, we're going to use seeds. Now you can also do something which I call augmenting, where I use maybe, let's say, marigold, and then use seeds around the side, or use the sweet potato vine along the side with my seeds on top of it. So there's a lot of options you can do with these. But this one we're just going to use just seeds. So we're going back over here. Remember our purple zinnias. We're just going to grab a handful of this because a lot of it's flower petals, but these little, I don't know if Scott can get in, those are the actual seeds. These things that look like seeds are actually the seed. The rest of it's just the old flower petals from last year. So we're going to put a lot in there, and you can always thin them out. And then we're just going to kind of twist it around and get those buried. Tap it down a little bit. And then we're going to put a little more on top of that. And now in about a week, you're going to see these little zinnia seedlings come up. And by, I would say, the end of May, by the end of May, first part of June, you're going to start seeing some flowers because they grow that fast. And as long as you keep deadheading them, they'll keep growing more. But another trick with zinnias or marigolds or any of those that have kind of a life expectancy. So we'll plant this. And then in a few weeks, when the seedlings are coming up, I'll take a tool like maybe this, and in between the plants, I'll poke some holes. So your seedlings are going to be coming up, and then I'm going to plant more seedlings in there. Or more seeds in there. So that way they're growing at different times. So the first batch will bloom through June. The next batch you'll get through July. And you can just keep doing that. Just keep adding a little hole and adding more flowers, and then it just stays beautiful all year. Let's see what other questions we have here. Let's see. Can I reuse potting soil from the previous year? Yes, but here's what I like to do. I will take, let's see, do I have a pot over here that's not already planted? Well, come on, Scott, we're going on a field trip. Oh, here's one I haven't planted yet. Does everybody like my piano? So this is last year. Last year I had Mexican morning glories, which are the most beautiful little red flowers you've ever seen growing in this, so you can still see a little of the vine. So take this, take all the junk out of it, and then rough up this part of the soil, and then add some of that good potting soil. So mix in some of that new potting soil. It does two things. It helps aerate the soil. It also, that better potting soil that we got from Miracle Grow has a natural fertilizer, well, not natural, it has a fertilizer in it that will help boost your new flowers, and then you're good to go. You don't have to pull it out. You don't have to remove all the dirt every year. This pot it's probably close to 5 or 6 years. And you just keep adding a little more, enriching the soil. Lots of easy ways to, and because I have so many pots, I really focus on keeping it cost effective because I don't have thousands of dollars to do bedding plants. So, that's a great way to buy new pots every year, add more to it, and you really get kind of a pretty display without a lot of money. All right, should we go back over there? By the way, all of these have morning glories in them and Celsius. It's like a baby's breath. And then you can see right here, here's the morning glory that's decided it's going to join the party. And then this will completely cover, you can see from last year, which nature will take care of ripping this all down. But you can get really adventurous and fun with all of these. Let's see if we have some more questions. What kind of fertilizer do you use? Well, I actually use Miracle Grow when I water. That's a nice, safe one. But when I'm making my own dirt, which that could be a whole other segment, because I burn leaves and I use the carbon, and it's crazy here at the Rawl backyard. The Miracle Grow is safe because it's really hard to burn your plants with them. So whenever you're watering, I fill a little gallon bucket full of it and I dump it around. And I'll tell you, I get some of the most amazing flowers between doing this trick with the good potting soil and the base potting soil, and then that Miracle Grow, augmenting your dirt with carbon. If you have a fire pit, throw that in. That helps flowers grow too. And then it has to kind of come down to your passion of keeping them alive and watering and all of that fun stuff that goes along with it. And this is what I do every weekend. It's my happy place. We have another question, everybody. Please hold. Oh, so some of the question is, what are the best plants for someone who isn't great with plants? Okay, well, I'm not great with indoor plants. So if you have advice on indoor plants, I would take that. Anything I take inside dies immediately. But my happy place is outside. So zinnias, which are my favorite, because they just bloom in all the rainbow colors. Those are really easy to take care of and maintain. Petunias, those will grow like a weed. Now, the only downside to petunias is if you don't deadhead them. And what that means is to pop off the flowers once they bloom and they die, then they'll just turn into this green flower or this green plant, and it won't bloom anymore. So you have to get some scissors and go out and kind of play with them. But if you're okay with it just blooming through like July, life is good. I like to plant daisies. Those grow in pots. Usually it has to be a bigger pot. So those are all daisies that are growing in that pot right to the right of me. And those come up every year. So you don't have to replant these. And I have that in a few different, I have these and echinacea that are growing pots, and they just come back every year. It's actually kind of fun to do those that come back every year because there's certain times when you just can't get out in time to do it. You can't get to the yard as much as you want, and then these just fill in for you. You got a backup plan. Oh, those birds are loving the pergola today. I think there's a nest up there. Okay, well, does anybody have any more questions? The seeds are great. I'll tell you, I buy a lot of seeds from the dollar store. They're like 4 for $1.25. They make great pot fillers. There's lots of options. there's seed exchanges. I know the Omaha Public Library, I think it's the Elkhorn location, has a seed depository where you can go and get seeds for free, and they have a whole bunch of different kinds. So you can take these pots, which at NFM are such an amazing price, put in a few dollars worth of potting soil, and then you have a place to garden all year. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention before we go, I also use these to grow vegetables. Now, I didn't buy any tomato plants yet for these, but you can grow a bush type tomato plant in these pots as well. And, you know, talk about function. They're kind of pretty because it's all green. The pot is beautiful because it's all these kilned pieces. And then you get tomatoes. So talk about a win-win. It's always fun. But if you have any questions, just keep asking them and I'll answer them throughout the day. And otherwise, oh, we have another question. I keep trying to close and then, the question is, do I do seed starters inside? And as I mentioned earlier, anything that I try to grow inside the house dies immediately. So I have spent all kinds of money coming up with ways to do starter plants inside, and I have had zero luck. So nope, not anymore. But I know people who do, and they're fantastic. They get a spring, you know, they don't go to the Lowe's to buy bedding plants. They just go and get them out of their house. And I wish I had that, but inside plants just do not love me. All right, well, I'm going to say that's our time. Again, keep asking. Come down to the Nebraska Furniture Marts in all regions except for Des Moines. We have these pots. The fresh ones from this year are all out now, so there's new colors and new textures. And I mean, look at the texture on this one. And I just got this one. I mean, that is amazing. And I think I paid $15 or $20 for that. You'll never find those pots like that anyplace else for those. So come down, load up your car. We'll help you load. And you'll have the most beautiful garden every year with very little work. All right, everybody. Have a great week.